Hi everyone. This video is about a topic that can be quite tricky, but is very important if you want to build strong and successful relationships with your NDIS clients. It's about boundaries. We're going to talk about what boundaries are, why boundaries are important, what common boundary issues are, and how you can create boundaries with your clients in a professional and empowering manner. So what are boundaries? Boundaries are essential guidelines that help us to maintain a space between us and others, physically and emotionally. So now, why are boundaries so important with NDIS clients? If you are an NDIS provider, you're probably wearing many hats for your clients. You're a caregiver, you're a support worker, and for some of them, you might be their best friend. It is very easy to get caught up in wanting to help in any way that you can. So here's the key. Boundaries are actually not about being cold or distant. They're actually about empowerment. If you know that you only have to give your 100% when you're actually with your clients during your designated working hours, you know that you can go back and recharge, and that actually allows you to give a more sustainable and long-lasting support system. So what are some common boundary issues NDIS providers face? There's, for example, work-life balance, taking calls from your clients after hours. This can not only lead you to feeling like burned out because you're constantly in touch with your clients, but it can also lead to false expectations from your clients. You might be okay with taking a call on one day, but on another day you don't feel like it, and your client might expect you to take their calls because that's what you have been doing in the past. And that can lead to them feeling you are unreliable. Another boundary issue is emotional entanglement. A lot of NDIS participants are facing complex challenges, and it is very normal to feel empathic. But if we get too involved in trying to take on a client's burden, it can affect us even after the shift with the client. It is important that we stay strong and stay in our own frame and not take things too close, because otherwise we won't be able to provide the strong shoulder that the client actually needs. Overstepping professional boundaries is an issue many providers face, because sometimes the line between being a support worker and being a friend can be quite thin. And it's important to remember that you're not their best friend. You are their support worker, and you need to keep that distance in order to provide professional support. Communication is key. Communicate clearly what your working hours are and what your preferred method of communication outside the working hours is, and how that can look like. Be clear about what they can expect from you and where your limits are. Be clear and consistent. Don't be afraid to say no. Be firm but polite when you explain that you don't feel comfortable with a specific request or an action that a client might have been taking or wants to take. Set up an agreement. You have to do this in the beginning before you start your work, because you want to set things up while they're still fresh and everyone is happy and there's no history of instances. This point is very important because it outlines what can be expected from both of you. It should contain things like your pay rates, your working hours, cancellation periods. It will help you when there is a disagreement between you and your client. You can always go back to the document that you both have signed. Now you might think, well, my clients experience me as being cold and abandon them or being distant. Actually, the opposite is the case. Your clients will find you more trustworthy and more reliable. Because you have strong boundaries in place for yourself, they can learn from you, and you can show them how they can create boundaries for themselves. The benefits of setting healthy boundaries is massive. It can help you with building strong relationships with your clients, a better work-life balance, and it reduces the stress and burnout. So let's talk about some examples of setting boundaries with your clients. Let's say a client calls you after hours and you decide to pick up. It might have been the first time that they call you and you believe it might be an emergency. When you pick up the phone, it's important that you suggest with the way you pick up that you were not expecting their call. You could say, "Hey, is everything okay?" This way you signal to them that it's not normal for you to take their calls or for them to call you outside hours. Then, depending on what the issue is, you want to suggest to talk about it during your next session. If it's an urgent matter, just advise them where they can find help let's say the matter was less important and you decide that you talk about it during the next session, just address it. And then you can say, hey, next time, I would appreciate if you would just talk to me when I am here, because I might be with other clients and won't be able to take your call. And I don't want you to rely on me out of working hours. And of course, I also have to recharge myself and look after my own matters, so I can come back to you and help you in the best possible way. They will understand that. Another example is a client asking you to borrow money. Of course, you say no to that. You might not need the money, it might just be for coffee. But the last thing that you want to do is create some sort of awkwardness between you and your client, because they might not be able to pay you back, or they might forget about it. And the other way around, you don't want to borrow money from them ever. If they ask you about it, you can just say, look, I would love to help you, but our relationship is very important. I would prefer if we would not have things like borrow money in the middle of us and create something that might affect our professional relationship. And they will appreciate that as well. And at last, please remember that setting boundaries is a journey. With every person that you're going to set boundaries, it's going to be a journey, how that's going to look like. And don't feel discouraged if you don't feel super comfortable in the beginning, or if you got a weird reaction from your client. Just think about, why are the boundaries that you want to set important to you? How would it affect you if you wouldn't have them in place? With practice, you're going to learn and feel more comfortable with setting your boundaries, and it will help you with fostering every relationship.